I don't know what to do. Does it cost £14? All Zoom costs it.
If you want less than an hour, just 45 minutes.
That's
more than 45 minutes.
These 4 bottles cost the most. Come on, let's see. It's a hard question.
I've not been in the game for that.
No, come on.
What's the most?
Which one costs the most? You don't know? You're not allowed in this share. In this share, we only have people who...
Yeah. Sweet. You know the sweet value.
I also don't know. I haven't any idea. Only whiskey I've ever bought is Famous Grouse. So my father buys it. Right. We're up to Memtes Samud Aleph. Where are we up to? We're up to Memtes Samud Aleph, halfway down approximately. Today's daf, we're discussing the shittin. What did they do to the shittin? What did they do to it? They would pour water and wine down the pipes. Now, I might as well say it outside. There's a big machlokas, again, disturbing, such a big machlokas, such a radical machlokas. That's exactly what the shittim were. Some Tanoim hold that on the Mizbeach, there was a pipe that went through the entire Mizbeach into the ground, all the way to the Tehom. The Tehom is the real depths of the world, below thousands and thousands of feet below ground. That is some Tanoim hold. Others hold that all it was a pipe which flowed from the top of the Mizbeach down the wall of the Mizbeach, and then it stayed on the floor of the Beis HaMikdash because the floor of the Beis HaMikdash was made out of marble, and then there's nothing, marble doesn't absorb, it's absorbing, non-porous. So therefore it would just stay on the floor of the Mizbeach and get stuck, in fact, next to the lamp. So machloek is what is the shitten. In fact, Teresa's points out, not here, but elsewhere, that it's a steer in Rabbi Yochanan. One place Rabbi Yochanan says it was all the way down to the Tehom. In another place, Teresa said that Rabbi Yochanan holds, he says machloek is ancient as Rabbi Yochanan. Oh, very good. Very good. The Gemara Makkas tells us that David HaMelech dug and dug and dug. And what happens is, he got all the way to the Tehom. And what happened was, the water came out. Anybody know the water came out, and the water was about to be flooded. Achitofel knew that advice, refused to tell it to him, etc. So Rashi asks the question: if he dug there, presumably dug for the shit, and if he dug for the shit, and it's a proof that it was a pipe that went through the mizbach into the very, very depths. Rashi answers the what? That it was for the foundations of the Beis HaMikdash. It had nothing to do with the shit. Tosis answers that Gemara argues with this Gemara. So again, there was something called the shittim.
If they just run down the mizbeach, why just say they created
very good. To which Rashi says, Rashi on this page says that this Gemara argues with that Gemara. Right. Now, either way, we see that the shittim was something very, 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 very special. I pointed out, I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before, that there's no mitzvah that we will celebrate with as much joy as the Simchas Beis HaShoeva, which all it was the celebration of drawing water from the spring and bringing it to the Beis HaMikdash. What they would actually do, people are not so aware, they would bring the korban tamid of the afternoon, and then when would they actually draw the water? Does anybody know when they would draw the water? Mm-hmm. No, very, very, very early morning. Very, very early morning. Very good. They couldn't do it at night, but very, very early. So early in the morning, this is wonders why it's no Mam Shalom. But Maisa, like 2-3. So from the korban tamid, which was about 6:30 in the afternoon, all the way to 2-3 in the morning, they would sing and dance in celebration that what? that they're going to draw down on these pipes. There's going to come back to it. Let's say very briefly, it says like this. We say in the pasuk by Chum Beis Hamikdash, and now it's Bava Shom Yeshanu, Gam Bochinu. The word Gam Bochinu, we also cried, is a challenge. What do you mean we also cried? Shom Yeshanu, but Bochinu, we cried. Why Gam? Chazal tell us that when Christ went to the Churban, they cried, but the waters of Babel also cried. They cried with the waters of Babel. Why were the waters of Babel crying? Now, Shmuel created the world, Rashi says, being of Bereshis. He split the water to the top water and the low water. The low water protested, that's not right. We also want to be close to you. What did Hashem answer them? You'll get Nisach HaMayim. You'll get water on the Mizbeach and plus the salt from the sea on the Korban. So for many years, the water rejoiced because they were brought on the Mizbeach and therefore they were close to Hashem. When the water saw the Mizbeach was being destroyed, they realized they were not going to be close to Hashem. Meaning that in Nisach HaMayim, we're getting to the root of the joy of every mitzvah. In that all mitzvahs, what gives us the joy is the ability to get close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is to remind us that this is what the waters have been yearning for years and years. Okay, so we're up to the last thing we did yesterday was, don't say, told about Shmuel, Bereshis, Atiku, Bereshis, Elabor, Shis. Hashem created the Shisin right at the beginning of the creation, which is the question, why would you create that right at the beginning of creation? To give an opportunity for the water to get onto the Mizbeach. Tanya Rabbi Yisrael, Shitin Mechulolin, they were hollow, but Yodin at Tahoim went all the way down into the Tahoim, into the depth. Shenema. This is a fascinating passage. It's actually a series of tells of Klal Yisrael. He uses a metaphor to tell Klal Yisrael off because he wants to arouse emotion. When you say Stam, he tells somebody, you give them a whole story, it gets people much more excited. A good story can really get some of these emotions going. So what does Yeshai do? He goes to Klal Yisrael and says, I'm going to tell you a song on behalf of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, a song about the vineyard. There was once an owner that decided to plant the most beautiful vineyard. And he built a wall around it and no animals should trample it. And he got rid of all the little stones inside the fields that the soil should be fertile. And he got the best vine roots that was possible. And he nurtured it. And at the end of it all, what grew from the vine? Bitter grapes. And the owner of the vineyard comes and says, what could I have done more for you that you should grow such terrible grapes? And what is the message of the pasuk? HaKadosh says to Klal Yisrael, I took you to Eretz Yisrael, which is the most fertile land. I took out all the rocks, that's all the goyim were thrown out of Eretz Yisrael. I put a wall around you, that is that I brought you into the Beis Hamikdash, which is a wall around. I did everything I could. And what did you produce? Unpleasant behavior. Okay, that's the pasuk. It's Yeshai Perik Hey, and if you go through it, you'll get a very lot of chizuk. So it says Shenema, it says Ashiro no. Yeshai says, I will sing Liyadidi on behalf of my beloved, which is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shiva Asdoidi, the song of my beloved, Lekamo, it is vineyard. Kerem Hoyo Liyadidi, there was a vineyard to my beloved, that's Hashem, Bekeren ben Shemen. Shemen means, Shemen is oily, not oily, it's a better word, fat. Shomin, fatty. In a fatty, fertile land. Whereas Keyu, Vayaskeyu means he put a fence around it. Vayiskeleu means he took away all the rocks. Vayiteyu Shovek, he put there a beautiful plant. He planted a nice vineyard. Vayiven Migdal B'Seicha, he even built a tower in the middle of the vineyard to watch over the vineyard. V'gam Yekev Chotzaboy, he even put a wine press. Vayiteyu Shovek, and we explain. Vayiteyu Shovek Beis Hamikdash, that's a reference Beis Hamikdash. Even Migdal B'Seicha, he built the towers and Mizbeach. V'gam Yekev Chotzaboy, he put a wine press. A wine press, what is a wine press essentially? A hole in the ground, right? If you go to the certain place that they're excavating and find wine presses for 2,000 years ago, what is it? It's a pit in the ground. So when Hashem said I built a wine press for Klal Yisrael, what did he mean? Ze'elu HaShittin. It's referring to the shittin, those deep excavations which Hashem created in the Beis Hamikdash for the sake of Klal Yisrael. And with all of that, unfortunately, Klal Yisrael did not match. Tanya, now he argues, Rashi says he argues with this. Lul koton, he being kevesh mizbeach. There was a small window, small entrance between the ramp and the Mizbeach. Also translate with lol, entrance, space. I think lol is more like a small room, like losh tanagonim, like a chicken hen, a coop. It's a small room. Okay. The halacha is that the ramp did not touch the Mizbeach. Anybody can tell me why the ramp did not touch the Mizbeach? Definitely deserves a cup of hot water. No, hot water is much healthier. Imam Pesachim says that hot water is healthier. Why did the ramp not touch the Mizbeach? No. Okay, it's hard. No. The pasuk says that you should put on the mizbeach flesh, meat, and blood. Blood was always thrown, and therefore we put the lamp away from the mizbeach that he should have to throw from the lamp onto the mizbeach. The drasha we actually had was a tiny space, but within that space there was an opening. The Ma'avovi Kevesh on the western side of the ramp, once in 70 years, young Kranim who were not big and therefore they could fit through. Yodim Nisham would go down, they would gather all the wine which had dried out. It looked like a dried out fig cake. Or burn the surf, they would burn it. That means like this. He understands how Rashi explains, and we should all agree that you would pour the wine on his back. There was no pipes going into the depths. It went onto the floor of the mizbeach, and we said it was marble, which is non-porous. It would gather there, collect. Eventually, it would dry out, become like a dried out date, figs, and then you'd burn it like old dried out wine. It is interesting. The Rishonim asked that once in 70 years sounds very, very rare. In fact, they would pour quite a lot of wine. Surely it must have accumulated faster than once in 70 years. Okay. Shenema, they actually changed the Gilsa, to be honest. Shenema, the Gemara says, just like you pour the wine in Kedusha, also the burning Kedusha. My mashma, how do we see that you burn it? The Torah uses the word kodesh by burning the noisa. The Torah uses the word kodesh by putting the wine on his mizbeach to teach you that the wine also had to eventually get burnt. Says, well, now let's work out. We have a brisa. In the beginning, you can do me'ila. That means if you, for example, as the Kohen is leading the water or the wine onto the mizbeach, you go and take a sip of wine. You've been over on the ila, binena from kodesh. Yodu the shittim, but once it's been poured into these pipes, in ma'alim b'hem, there's no me'ila. We just had a fundamental machlokes. What's the pouring into the shittim? One opinion is you would pour it into the pipe and you would never see it again, or it would go into the very depths. The other opinion is that you would pour it, would flow off the mizbeach onto the floor and accumulate. Now it says over here that once you poured it into the shittim, there's no me'ila. Says the more, who does this go like? It must be Ablos Vasadik, Diva Bonon. If it's Chacham or Nochtu Lelatoim, you're not going to be able to do Me'ila. They're not around to do Me'ila. How can you do Me'ila once we poured it to the pipes? How are you going to get there? Says the Gemara, no. Somebody put his hand inside and caught it after it went inside, before it went all the way down. Some say on the contrary. Maybe this Bible says certainly the Cham not Vasadik. Why? The Brisa says that once it's poured into the shittim, there's no me'ila. Why is there no me'ila once it's poured into the shittim? Why? Why is there no me'ila? Anything that you've done the mitzvah, there's no me'ila. Me'ila is that you're benefiting from a korban when there's still something to be done to it. You're supposed to bring the korban on mizbeach and you eat it. That's me'ila. If it's already been burnt and in ashes, there's no me'ila on ashes. There's nothing left to do to it. So according to the Chachamim, that once you pour it into the shittim, there's nothing left to do to it. I can understand there's no me'ila. Oh, that's the concept of Sadiq that you burn it. We just said the machlekes. So the Gemara says, this din that there's no me'ila, the Gemara gives 2 or 4 ways. Let's go to the inside. Because you need to burn it. Since you've done the main mitzvah, there's no me'ila. Again, we have a brisa that tells us that till you pour it into the shittin, there is me'ila. After you pour it into the shittin, there's no me'ila. The Gemara wants to try and verify who says this statement. We had an argument what exactly the shittin were. Were they pipes that went to the tahom? Were they pipes that went to the floor of the mizbeach, and eventually the wine would accumulate, to which they would then burn? Says the Gemara. First explanation, the Gemara says it must be Rab Lezer Rab Tzadok, this brisa. Why? Because the Chamim, it's impossible to have an off from it. It's gone. If it's gone, you can't get pleasure. So there's no Shiloh me'ila. There's more than maybe when you caught it. Says well, maybe the other way around. It must be like the Chachamim. Because according to Ablos Babsadik, there should be Me'ila. Why should there be Me'ila even after you pour down the pipes? Because you're not finished the mitzvah. What is the mitzvah? To burn it later. It says, well, no, you've done your main mitzvah to pour to this Mizbeach. That which you burn it later is less important. Okay. When we would pour the wine in the Mizbeach, they would actually block the hole for a short time. That means when you pour the wine on the Mizbeach, the big bowl, like we showed yesterday, 2 pictures, Rashi and Tosfos, where the holes at the bottom or the holes at the side, but they would block up the hole. Why? The literal translation of this, Bakodesh in holiness, Hasich means to pour, Nesech Shecha La Hashem. Nesech means a pouring, Shecha means a wine, La Hashem. Now the Torah could have used the word yain. Why use the word Shecha? My mashma, Omar Papa Shecha Loshen Shtir. Shecha is an expression of drinking, Loshen Svir, of satisfaction, Loshen Shecha is an expression of drunkenness. And the Torah says pour wine, so use pour wine. The Torah uses pour Shecha. Shecha is more than wine. Shecha is something that makes you feel drunk, makes you feel satisfied, makes you feel like excited. That if you pour it on the Mizbeach and the wine would be, the hole would not be blocked, it would go straight down, you won't see it. If you block the hole, it overflows. And then it looks abundance and exciting. And afterwards, you take away the blockage, and then you would pour down. We darshan this from the fact that there is from this we see the fact that satisfaction comes from the fact, if you explain this, explain it even better. If you pour it down a hole, so what happens is it just goes straight down, and that's it. You block the hole, it gathers and gathers and gathers and gathers, and then you take the pipe, the blockage away, and then it comes shooting down. And that was like a certain satisfaction. Now, if you were to, the Rashi explains it, I said outside, but when you eat, Rashi says satisfaction happens in your stomach. So it makes no difference if you eat fast or slow. You'll be satisfied once you've eaten a certain amount. But by drinking, the Gemara tells us now, drinking happens the speed that you drink it. If you sip something, you'll never be satisfied. If you have a very big gulp, even if you only have a little bit, you'll be satisfied straight away. How do we see that? Because of this, what we're doing to Mizbeach is to block it and then pull away the blockage in order that it should come shooting in, and that way show satisfaction for the Mizbeach is a proof that that is the way to feel satisfied in Yom Lechayim. So if you ever want to drink wine, you want to feel satisfied, now you know what to do. Let's go to this. Shema mino, ki sova inish, when a person gets satisfied, chama migroinei sova. The satisfaction comes in the throat, not in the stomach. You look at Rashi, Rashi adds all what I just said. The Talmud Chacham has got no wine, he's very poor. So what should he do? When he drinks wine, he should have big gulps. Why should he have big gulps? Because that way he'll feel satisfied. Whenever you would get a cup for benching, would have very, very big gulps. Why? Because to show that he loves the mitzvah, he wouldn't sip it, he would have very big gulps. Because, as we said, big gulps make you feel satisfied. But there's a lot to say, but one needs to go on. How beautiful are the shoes, your footsteps and shoes, bas nodiv. How beautiful are the footsteps of Klal Yisrael, the Shosha in the Rega, when they would go up to the Beis Hamikdash. There's a fascinating chazal that Klal Yisrael, when they would walk to the Beis Hamikdash, they would wear multicolored shoes. Anybody know why they would wear multicolored shoes? Somebody should know. Why would Klal Yisrael, when they do Aliyah Rega, wear multicolored shoes? A pasuk, how beautiful are your shoes? Why? The answer is, whenever you do a mitzvah, you have to do it with Yofi. Beautiful lulav, beautiful tzitzis. The mitzvah of Aliyah Rega is to walk. With what item do you use to get to the Beis Hamikdash? Your feet, your shoes. So in order to show how precious the mitzvah was, what they did was they would wear multicolored shoes. In fact, I tell you that somebody opened up a shoe shop in Bnei Brak. So he asked Yitzchak Zilberstein to hang up the mezuzah. Many times, you've got a new business, you ask a Rav, Yitzchak Zilberstein. I met Yitzchak Zilberstein a couple of times when I was younger. Right, so what happened was, so Yitzchak Zilberstein came and said, I'll give you a bracha that very shortly you'll be zoicha to start selling multicolored shoes, rainbow-colored shoes. And the shoe shop owner, did not know what he was talking about. Because nowadays, especially in Bnei Brak, you will find people buy black shoes and black shoes and black shoes. You won't find any other kind. So he couldn't understand what was Yitzchak telling him. What kind of bracha is that? So he explained to him that soon we'll come to Beis Hamikdash. There's a very, very beautiful netziv. Sefer nights, upstairs. Beautiful sefer where he talks about how they would walk by foot and they won't go by horse. Anybody know why they would walk by foot, not by horse? What? To get more schar. Also, because some people couldn't afford a horse. It's an community. It's an unbelievable thing to picture. Guys are walking together. Anyway, she always be zecher to wear multicolored shoes soon. So what's the Shoshana Nega? Bas Nodif, the daughter of Nodif. Who is Nodif? Who's the noble one? Bitter Shlavama Vinu Shnikor Nodif. Well, we know it's called the Nodif. Shnamani Div Amin Sof, Amaliki Avom, Eliki Avom, Eliki Yitzchak V'Yaakov. It's actually the pasuk that we'll be saying before Tkiyas Shofar. Div Amin Sof, we say it 7 times. Eliki Avom is Yaakov. Eliki Avom Shetchila gave him. He was the first for game. There's many explanations. I'll just say 2 points, very briefly. Mashal says. He said one place, one thing. He said like this, that Kaisol have this tremendous greatness that they all do aliyah l'regel. It's not easy to leave your home, to leave everything behind. It's danger, costs, and all the rest. It's such a hard journey. And who was the first one to undertake a journey for the sake of Hashem? It was Abraham. So because of that, when we talk about Kaisol, Bas Nodiv, we describe from who it came from. He says even more than that. Who was the first Yid to bring a korban on the Beis Hamikdash? Avraham Avinu. Because when he came to do the Akedah, it was on the Har HaBayis, and he didn't manage to do the Noach brought, I said the first. So there's a lot to be said also. He said the div. Good word for it. The div means generosity, to give me a donation. So the div is something. Avraham Avinu was a very generous person. Now, why does that make him Shetchila? Why is it making Shetchila game? The idea being like this: that most people, they are selfish regarding giving to Hashem. Avraham Avinu was ready to give. He was the most generous-hearted, and that's why he gave himself over, and that's why he was the first king. And that's why when we refer to Klali, so we talk about the nation or Bas Nodif. Okay. The pasuk says the hidden thighs are like beautiful jewelry. We said this yesterday, the work of a craftsman. Why is Torah compared to a thigh? Just like the thigh is a hidden part of the body. After the Torah says so. You should go with Hashem in modesty. That's justice. That is paying for burial. She explains where the leches, that's near leches. Be modest when you go. There are 2 places that you have to go to do a mitzvah. Where do you have to go to do a mitzvah? Where is the mitzvah? Where the actual going is the mitzvah? The Mom says over here is referring to Levaya, through the chuppah. So that's leches. Even when you're doing the mitzvah, the skala, it should be done with modesty. Yes, maybe it's not device. These are devices. Let's just finish up. These are things which a person does publicly. Says that's you should do modesty. Things that you should do privately. But here gives you 2 different explanations. One from and one of his own explanation is that the Gemara is referring to someone who supports a kala or levai. He pays for levai. He pays for achlos kala. Says about Chaygon that it's a public thing. Why is it a public thing? Because most people that go to chasna, so people find out and they say, who paid for this chasna? Nevertheless, the Torah says that even when you're giving money to a public affair, which most people would be aware, try as much as possible to hide how much you gave, what you gave with modesty. And that's the chiddush. which is a public mitzvah, you should do it privately. Rashi says a completely different shot. These are public mitzvahs where a person does it publicly, on a bike, etc. And a person might think that since it's a public declaration of the greatness of the dead person by giving a hesped, and a public declaration of how beautiful the chassan and kala is that you dance so much, you might have thought to go to the extreme and do it as much as possible. That means to exaggerate at the levaya, to exaggerate at the chasna. Be modest. Don't overindulge in celebrating the chasna or in crying for the levaya. I saw, I think it was it's Chios, but I could be wrong, says that if that is pshat, like Rashi says, then the Gemara in Subas, which says that how do you dance in front of Kala, you say Kala Nova Chasuda, even if she's not a Kala Nova Chasuda, argues with this Gemara, we pass that Gemara, not like this Gemara, and that there's no din to be modest in your spading and in your celebration of the chast. So we've got two explanations. Go back to the posuk a little bit like this. The way the Yehudim thighs, Kemoi Chaloim, or like Shulu, Rashi says all of this. Who is the greatest craftsman of all? Hashem. What was the most beautiful jewelry that he made? I'd also said that, but no, he says it's the luchos, because the luchos, Ma'aseh Kimhema, were created by Hashem. So therefore, the pasuk says, "Chamuki yochayich Yehudim thighs." Or the jewelry which Hashem created, the master craftsman. Meaning that the luchos which Hashem created, which the luchos symbolize Torah, they are like the hidden thighs. Just like your hidden thighs, they're a very big beauty of a woman, but the woman keeps them hidden. So too, the Torah is very beautiful, but there's a mitzvah to do it in a certain modesty. The Gemara word Kerta, as I said before, actually that one shouldn't actually teach to the public place. It's like if it's a very special thing, you don't just keep in Torah in a modest form. Okay. Says the Gemara weiter. Omar Bolosa, God the stock, yes, we call it greatest something the stock more than anything, all the kabbalas together. Then I'll say stock or mishpat, nivchala Hashem mizerach. It's more chosen to Hashem than the Korban. I met a wealthy, I did this a couple of days ago. I met a wealthy-ish person the other day. So I just done the Gemara, so I said to him, I'm jealous of you. You have so much opportunities to give tzedakah. The Chazal tell us, God the tzedakah, you used to be kol ha-korbanos. Can you imagine such a thing? A person gives tzedakah. I mean, obviously each person according to his level. So perhaps if a poor person's poor and he gives £20, it's worth more like 2,000 for wealthy person, perhaps. But the point is, but you see over here that Chazal put tzedakah as a very, very, very high thing. And many people who are struggling are not able to give as much tzedakah. Here you see what Chazal do. That they say that giving tzedakah is greater than all the kabbalas together. Chesed is even greater than tzedakah. The kitzur of chesed. Plant for tzedakah and harvest for kindness, kindness. Now, when you plant, you do not know whether you'll get anything, right? Nothing will grow. When you harvest, you've got much more satisfaction. In other words, when you plant stuff, you might not get to eat, it might not grow, it might get ruined. So chesed is greater than tzedakah, you're guaranteed more schar. I once mentioned the Sefer Torah Chaim writes in the Gemara in Bava Basra Daf Ches, an unbelievable thing. That when a person does a chesed, it's like planting a seed. And when you plant a seed of an apple, you produce hundreds of thousands of apples. That means the rate of return is not 10%, it's not 20%, it's not 1,000%, it's not 1,000,000%. It's hundreds of millions of percent. And he says that does that without chesed. Every time we do an act of chesed, Hashem plants it, and if it gives back, that's what he says, that's what it means, that kitzur fi chesed, Hashem plants the tzedakahs that we do, and then we will eventually harvest it according to the chesed. Person that only gets rewarded according to the act of kindness within the tzedakah. Rashi explains that when the person does tzedakah, there are different ways of doing tzedakah. There's a way of doing it in a kind manner and an unkind manner. For example, you go to the poor person to give him the money. He feels kinder than when you wait for him to come to you. You give him money at a time when the sales, when prices are low, he's able to buy more things. Or for example, you give him ready produced bread rather than money, he's happier because then he's got something to eat straight away. Like ready cooked meal could be a better kindness than just money. So if the amount of thought and effort put into the tzedakah, that's how much chesed the person gets, reward the person gets. She said, "Zulach and tzedakah v'kitzur fi chesed." So it's a chesed, the effort. Rashi says. Tolabal. B'shleish tvam gdol g'nus chesed v'nisnat tzedakah chesed is greater than tzedakah in 3 ways. Tzedakah b'mamonah. Tzedakah you can only do with money. G'nus chesed b'migufi b'mamonah. G'nus chesed can be done with your money or with your body. You can do chesed, for example, carry a dead person, walk with a person on a malava person on the journey. These are chesed you can do with your body. Tzedakah, lanim is only for the poor. You do chesed for the poor or the rich. Tzedakah lechaim, ben the is both for the alive and both for the dead. Person who does righteousness and tzedakah and mishpat, as if he filled the entire world with chesed. Chesed Hashem molaretz. If a person does tzedakah mishpat, he fills the world with chesed. You might say that anybody wants to jump on a bandwagon, anybody wants to chesed can do it. Talmud loyma v'chesed Hashem. Talmud loyma ma yokol chesed alekim. How precious is your chesed? The Gemara's dashing over here like this: how precious, how hard it is to get. It is very, very difficult to truly be able to be zeicha to do a chesed that it should come out well. I mean, sometimes the person does something, and you realize afterwards that was a very, very, very special thing, right? And then what happens is you feel that you were able to really do chesed. That was a good act of chesed. Hashem doesn't give you the opportunity always. You need to daven to be zeicha to the opportunity. Love came from Gateshead. They gave a couple of shurim here in Manchester. He was invited to speak Chashuvah. And what happened was he went to speak to her husband in about some Torah union, and she walked in and she said to him, "Perhaps you'd like supper." So he said, "Yes, please." She had leftovers. She said to him, "Hold on, meatballs and pasta, whole supper." And he walked into the kitchen. He said to her, "You should just know, I was almost dead from starvation. I'd come from Gateshead, given drasha after drasha. That's meeting after Yechoshev Talmud Chacham." And what happened was, sometimes you get very, 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 very hungry. And I'd eaten a snack here, a snack there, kind of coke here. And now you literally revived me from the dead. That's what he said. So imagine how that woman felt. You need the opportunities to do chesed. Sometimes you can do such things. You get opportunities to do chesed. Like what says, by Yokol Chastecha, how precious is your chesed. You need opportunities to do chesed. Somebody who feels Hashem is like that. The Gemara is explaining according to this pshat, the way Rashi explains, that somebody who fears Hashem, Hashem gives them constant opportunities to do chesed. Anybody that has favor, that means people, he's got a certain favor from Hashem, you can know that he fears Hashem. The word chesed doesn't just mean kindness. Chasuda, no means beautiful. The chasuda means she finds favor. Chesed means to find favor. The chesed Hashem of those who fear Hashem, Hashem finds favor. Pure poscha b'chochma b'siyas chesed al-sheina. To have chesed on the tongue, chesed is a such thing as which is not kind. And a Torah is shmo zu Torah shel chesed. Shalom to chesed. Ike dami Torah lamdo to teach it to others zu Torah shel chesed. Shalom lamdo zu Torah she'eno shel chesed. This Torah is not chesed. We just finished Velav Agada to get now back to halacha. The Mishnah says that every day on Sukkot, including Shabbos, 3 log except the Kuntav Yoda 1 log, and they would walk up. They would go down to the stream early in the morning, and they would bring it to the Samigdash, and they would blow shofar, and they would pour it on the Mizbeach. If you think about it, it's such a small act, such a small thing. And they made such a big thing out of it, such a big thing out of it. For 7 days, nobody went to bed. Realized nobody ever got to bed. Because as I mentioned before, there would be in the common Talmud in the afternoon at about 6:30. They would dance all the way till 2, 3 in the morning, then go and draw the water. And then they would have the whole day's avodah. For 7 days, nobody went to bed. They would sleep while they were standing up, like on each other's shoulders. All right, so the point is, it was such an excitement. What did they take? A jug of water, and they would pour it on the Mizbeach. Now, on Shabbos, you have a problem. What's the problem? You can't draw the water because you can't cut. So what's our solution? Bring the water before Shabbos. The problem is bring the water before Shabbos. Lina. Very good. The word lina is exactly the word we're looking for. Lina. Meaning that something that stays overnight is possible. So what do? we put it into something which is not Kaddish. If it's not Kaddish, no problem of Lina, we leave it to Beis Mikdash. Lina only applies to something which is Kaddish. Something which is not Kaddish does not have Lina. The more we asks a double question. Let's bring it with a Kaddish one, as Rashi explains. We should bring it with a Kodeshes without having intention to be Mekadesh it. And then once we have no intention to be Mekadesh it, it won't be Kaddish. Or we should bring so much that the fact is only 3 lug need to become, you need to run Mizbeach. We should bring, let's say, 6 lug or 9 lug, and then we should bring more than 3 lug. If you bring more water, it's also good. So therefore, however much water you bring will become Kaddish. Furthermore, the Klishos we catch and Shnei Das the Mekadesh even without intention. Top of the Naum Aleph. If become Kodesh, possible. That means the 2 solutions we just said don't have intention to be Mekadesh it. Why is that not good enough? Why is that not good enough? Is Mekadesh very good without having specific intention for Mekadesh? It's already Mekadesh. Or bring more than 3 lug. Why is that not a solution? Because if you pour more than 3 lug, it's also good. So therefore, you always need, so how much you bring, you could use. It's only Mekadesh with intention. If you bring it to the bowl, which is not Kaddish, and you say it's not L'Shem Kaddish, people will think that you did it with Das, and therefore it will be no good. Even if you said there's a share of man and people will say that you're brought it to wash the hands and feet of the Kohen Gadol. If you remember, we learned in Yoma that all the Kohanim would wash their hands by the kiyah. The Kohen Gadol would wash his hands in the jug. Wash your hands and feet, you may need to wash dozens of times. So therefore, if you bring the water in a bowl, even if you bring more than 3 lug, and even if you bring it in a keli which is not Kaddish, people will think that you bought it to be Mekadesh, and people will think that even if you have no intention of Mekadesh, people think you did have intention. So the problem is that people will have the wrong understanding of why the water is sitting there in the Beis Hamikdash, and then they'll see you using it the next morning, and they'll say to themselves, "Hey, there was a problem of lean over here, and you're nevertheless using it." So then what will happen is they'll come to next time rely on other lina and not be makbid. So therefore, we make sure to circumvent any chashash of maris or ayin of lina. We use a keli which is not kadosh. Says the Mishnah, if it got spilled or it got revealed, it's no good. Why? If it got spilled, it's gone. But if it's revealed, why is it no good? Let's pass the liquid through a sieve. The Gemara that haven't understood that a sieve gets rid of the poison. Says the Gemara, a sieve is a problem. Only if it's revealed. The top bottom gilui, there's no problem with gilui. There's also nachash, the snake, the poison of a snake, is like a sponge. It floats in its place. Actually, the Shulim all explain, you have to picture it. Not a picture of it. Yes, you have to picture it. Actually, wife used to have it, we don't know. Is you can have sometimes a sieve, maybe you have it, and then a rim around it, and the bowl underneath. And you cannot get to the bowl underneath it. It's like it's flush. The sieve is flush on the bowl on top, and you put the flour through the sieve, and then you've got, anybody got such a thing? No? God, you must have somebody who's seen such a thing. A big bowl, you get a big bowl with a sieve, with a net across. Very good. Oh, bad that's when we came back, we stopped talking about why it's got to do this. But that's the point. Now, the question is, imagine a big bowl with a sieve on top, and you left it revealed. It means there was liquid on top, and you left it open, and the liquid eventually went down through the sieve. Can you drink it? According to Chachamim, no. Why? We're scared that before the liquid was on top, the snake put poison. I went through the sieve, it went through, and the poison get through. The Chachamim holds no. He holds that the poison of a snake is like a sponge; it can't go through a sieve. Says the Gemara, so why can't you just sieve it? A person can drink it. Would you say such thing? Who said this pasuk? Malachi was very, very annoyed with Klal Yisrael. Said the name of Malachi. If only you would lock the Beis Hamikdash, if only you would put out the fire on the Mizbeach, because when you eventually bring a korban, you bring it with such disgrace. And he said, imagine you would bring what you bring to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you would bring it to your minister, or you'd bring it to a king. Would you be happy with it? If the king wouldn't be happy with it, you shouldn't bring it. And therefore, the same thing, that something which is saved is not as geschmack, and if you can't. We should say it again and again, in this world and the next world, and to learn it with more and more clarity. And a very big mazel tov. I'm always happy to go further. Why do you want to the Mishnah? What do we get? No, it's Kedai to. If we're not going to just go to the Mishnah, I think we might as well connect it to more, because connection to next stuff. So we'll stop over here. We are a bit stressed about. I'm a bit stressed about making sure to finish in time, but Mr. Hashem, we usually get there. So mazel tov finishing a fascinating perek. Lulav va'avava. So we have a very special member today. What's your name? What's Anthony? What's your son's name? Zevi. Tomorrow you're going to be for head. Tomorrow we're going to test on this perek back and forth.
Oh, cool. Right, let's go.
Right, we need the Chaim cups. And we'll have to do blind tasting and have to see if anybody knows.